Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning back in again. We are going to do the second reading together right now from Fox News on the same topic that we had just finished about the January 6th Capitol riots. So let's go ahead and get started by reading together. And please remember that after this reading and screencast, you guys are then going to proceed into the analysis chart accordingly. Here we go. Title: Trump acquitted in second impeachment trial on charge of inciting January 6th Capitol riot. GOP, led by Mitch McConnell, largely sticks with Trump during Saturday verdict. Here's the video that coincides with the reading, but we're focused on the print part of this reading. Former President Trump was acquitted in an unprecedented second impeachment trial on the charge of inciting an insurrection for the January 6th Capitol riot, making him the first and only president to be impeached and acquitted twice in history. A majority of senators found Trump guilty on Saturday in a 57-43 vote, but the number fell 10 short of the supermajority needed to convict the president. Had Trump been convicted, the Senate would have moved to bar the 45th president from holding federal office ever again. The 7 GOP senators who joined with all the Democrats in finding Trump guilty were Senators Richard Burr of North Carolina, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Mitt Romney of Utah, Ben Sasse of Nebraska, and Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania. Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont, who presided over the trial, announced the vote fell short of the two-thirds majority needed and therefore Trump is, quote, hereby acquitted of the charge, end quote. Now, the acquittal means that as of now, Trump can leave the door open to another White House bid in 2024, though senators have hinted that they may still try to bar him from office in the separate 14th Amendment measure. Next section. Schumer leaves the door open to 14th Amendment measure to bar Trump from office. Trump praised the victory, thanked his supporters, and promised he'd soon emerge with a vision for a bright, radiant, and limitless American future. The former president, who has largely stayed silent since his impeachment, also took aim at his opponents. Next section, Trump celebrates acquittal in Senate trial, foreshadows political future, much to share. This has been yet another phase of the greatest witch hunt in the history of our country, Trump said in a statement. Quote, no president has ever gone through anything like it, and it continues because our opponents cannot forget the almost 75 million people, the highest number ever for a sitting president, who voted for us just a few short months ago. Trump's second impeachment trial arguments lasted just 5 days, making it the shortest in presidential history. The previous record was held by Trump in 2020, when his trial related to inviting foreign interference into the election spanned only 21 days. The trial surrounded the January 6th riot when pro-Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, beat police officers, chanting, hang Mike Pence, and forced lawmakers to take shelter. The mayhem temporarily stopped Congress's certification of President Biden's Electoral College win. Here's a picture, of course, for context. House impeachment managers accused Trump of inciting the insurrection by spreading a, quote, big lie the election was stolen from him, summoning his supporters to Washington on January 6th, telling them to, quote, fight like hell, end quote, and then refusing to call off the attack once the mob violently took over the Capitol. Quote, he named the date, he named the time, he brought them here, and now he must pay the price, end quote, lead impeachment manager Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland said in his closing remarks to the Senate. Trump's legal team denounced the proceedings as an unconstitutional sham impeachment against a private citizen driven by Democrats' quote, hatred for Trump and their desire to silence a political opponent. Trump lawyers also argued the former president's political speech is protected by the First Amendment, and his words on January 6th to his supporters to, quote, fight like hell, end quote, were not meant literally. To drive home that point during the trial, Trump's defense played an 11-minute video of nearly every Democrat in the chamber using words like fight in their past speeches and interviews. Now, the vote capped a wild Saturday in Washington with numerous plot twists. In a curveball move, the Senate Saturday morning voted 55-45 to allow witnesses at the trial after Raskin said that they wanted to hear from GOP Representative Jamie Herrera Butler. Raskin citing the breaking news overnight about details Butler revealed of a heated phone call that Trump had with House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy during the middle of the Capitol attack. Butler, who is one of 10 Republicans who voted to impeach Trump in House, released her account on the call late Friday, confirming a CNN report that Trump dismissed McCarthy's pleas to call off the riot and instead told McCarthy that the rioters were, quote, more upset about the election than the House leader. When McCarthy finally reached the president on January 6th, he asked him to publicly and forcefully call off the riot. The president initially repeated the falsehood that it was Antifa and that had reached the Capitol, Butler said in his statement. Quote, McCarthy refuted that and told the president that these were Trump supporters. That's when, according to McCarthy, the president said, well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are. Now, Trump's legal team blasted that decision to call witnesses and threatened to depose 100 people if the doors open. A visibly angry and animated Michael Vanderveen said that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California and Vice President Kamala Harris would, quote, absolutely need to be disposed too, but not by Zoom. These depositions should be done in person in my office in Philadelphia, said Vanderveen told the senators, which drew audible laughter from the Senate chamber. Vanderveen shot back, I haven't laughed at any of you, and there's nothing laughable here. Here's a picture of Vanderveen, by the way. The surprise vote on witnesses shook Washington and seemed to even catch senators off guard. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas said the move off, quote, chaos in the chamber, and he speculated the trial could last until April with witnesses. Quote, at this point, it's pandemonium, Cruz told his reporters. But just as quickly as the Senate went down the path of witnesses, lawyers then reversed course on Saturday. After a recess where lawyers huddled, Trump's legal team agreed to allow the damaging statement from Butler to be entered into the trial of evidence. Armed with her statement, House prosecutors then abandoned their demand for witnesses altogether and moved to closing arguments. House managers said that the revelations about McCarthy's call with Trump show that Trump abdicated his oath of office by showing support for the rioters and disregard for the security of members of Congress and Pence, who was targeted by the mob for assassination. He chose retaining his own power over the safety of Americans, said Representative David Circline. I can't imagine more damning evidence of this state of mind. The arguments, however, were not enough to sway the 17 GOP senators needed for conviction. Now, GOP leader Mitch McConnell was very critical of Trump's conduct surrounding the January 6th riot, and his wife, former Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, even resigned from the administration in the aftermath of the attack that left at least 5 people dead, including a Capitol Police officer. There's no question that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day, McConnell said in a speech after the vote Saturday. Still, McConnell found Trump not guilty, saying he believes convicting the former president is unconstitutional. We have no power to convict and disqualify a former office holder who is now a private citizen, McConnell said in a speech, and here's a picture of Mitch McConnell. Representative Joaquin Castro of Texas, one of the impeachment managers, said McConnell all but admitted the House proved its case, but resorted to a procedural excuse against conviction. Trump was let off on a technicality, and that's essentially what you heard Mitch McConnell say, Castro said. In a news conference after the vote, Democratic managers pointed out that the presidential impeachment process was the most bipartisan in history, with 10 House Republicans and now 7 GOP senators backing the effort. Even though we didn't get 67 votes, this has been the most bipartisan vote for the impeachment and conviction ever, Castro said. And we know that we spoke the truth, and the American people, by and large, have agreed with us. So as you guys can see, there's a different take if you read closely enough and heard closely enough some of those details in here, with, of course, detecting our tools of bias from media sources from this account from Fox News over Donald Trump's second impeachment. I hope you found this to be incredibly helpful. Now, please proceed to the next screencast as we're going to analyze these two sources objectively.